George, get off of there. Hey, yoga fam. Jessie here. My pronouns are they and she. If this is the first time we're practicing together, welcome. It's going to get heady today. So this is part 2 of my What's a Vinyasa series that I forgot I did part 1 of. So if you've been waiting, welcome. We're all here now. There will also be a part 3. Um, in the first part of the video, if you haven't watched it and you're interested, go back and check it out. We talk about what goes into a sun salute A and why we call a vinyasa in vinyasa style yoga. Um, just a quick refresher, in Sanskrit, the word vinyasa means what comes in sequence or the next well-placed thing, are two definitions I really like. So when we link movement together and we flow, quote unquote, from one pose to the next, um, there's a lot of really intricate and specific movement that kind of gets glossed over and taken for granted by folks like me and like other yoga people that have been in the rooms and have been used to that kind of languaging for a long time. And for folks who are newer or who don't know about this stuff, they can feel a little left behind or even like they don't know something they should. So, my idea was to sort of demystify that process and also remind people that the idea of what comes next is subjective, that what comes next for you and I is going to be different because we have different bodies and different experiences of the world. So, just a reminder that if you're in a yoga class and the teacher offers vinyasa, that I give you full permission to do what connects you to your body next. Maybe that's drinking water. Maybe that's sitting down. Maybe that's peeing, taking care of yourself and connecting to yourself are like the points of our practice. So if you find yourself doing push up after push up and hating it, just that's an, ow, George. That's an interesting sort of place to be because you can really sit with that and say, okay, well, what would connect me to my body if not this thing? Today, we are going to talk about the concept of halfway lift and lower. So, this is a portion of a sun salute where you're at the front of the mat and you do some stand up, fold down, and then come back into chaturanga or plank or down dog. And I think the concept of halfway lift and lower has been misconstrued and misunderstood. What do you think, George? George loves helping me make videos. So thank you, George. We'll see how annoying he gets. Maybe I'll kick him out in a few minutes. Ow, the love nips. He licks and then he bites. It's relatable. Okay, so come on seated and bring your legs out in front of you. And if it is hard to stay seated upright with a curve going in and up in your low back, grab a blanket. I'll grab one because it never hurts. Fold it up. And you can fold it up as much or as little as you want. The way I like to do this is I take the blanket and I kind of scoot my butt onto the edge or corner. I don't want to be right on the middle of the blanket because that's just elevating the floor. You actually want to help tilt your pelvis forward so that when you're sitting upright, your spine is long and your legs are long. And it feels like you get a little extra support here. So the two of the main actions that your spine does are flexion and extension. So when we talk about a halfway lift, we're actually talking about halfway to extension. So if I lay all the way back onto the floor from 180 degrees, so from the floor up to 90, is extension because the muscles in your back engage and lift to lengthen. So here, sitting upright, I am in extension of the spine. Flexion is from 90 degrees forward to quote unquote zero. Obviously, that's not realistic for most of us. Um, but it's not halfway up to stand. So when we talk about halfway lift when we're standing, and we will do it today, um, we're not talking about halfway up vertical. We're talking about halfway to 90 degrees. And I started in this position because I think it clicks for people a little bit. To safely fold forward and experience flexion, we want to try and get as much extension to about 45 degrees here before we fold. Flexion is going to release the muscles in the back. It's going to round the shoulders. It's going to tuck the chin. If we are folding forward beyond that 45-degree angle, we're really just going to be pulling in our low back and in our hamstrings. We will actually not be getting the benefits that we think we are. So when we talk about halfway lift, we're actually talking about coming up about here, halfway to 90 degrees. So when you're in a regular forward fold, quote unquote regular, getting to this halfway lift point and then folding back down is actually going to open your spine more. And the same thing is true when we come up to stand. So before we do that, let's just stretch our legs a little bit while we're here. Cross your right ankle over your left knee for a little seated pigeon. You could stay here with your bottom leg extended, or you could bend your knee and add a little extra oomph. The point is not how close or far away your leg is, it's getting more external rotation and openness in your top leg. And you want to get your spine extended while you're here. So you don't want to round the back, you want to stay lifted through the chest. Whew, and we'll talk a little bit about why in a second. If you'd like, you can move your legs a bit. One option that can feel nice would be picking up your leg either with your elbows, your hands, or your forearms under your shin. And again, like when I did that, you can see my back rounded, so I'm not going to get as deep of a stretch in my legs. You want to stay more vertical. So maybe that means holding your leg different. Maybe it means not holding it at all. And then go ahead and switch. Deep breath. Sometimes it's hard when we're not doing a traditional class, when we're sort of workshopping stuff, to drop in. So just a reminder that your breath in and out is the most valuable tool, in my opinion, to like a fast track to connection. For some people, that's not true. Sometimes noticing your breath can be disconnecting, so no worries if that's you today. But perhaps a few rounds of deep inhales and exhales can help you remember that the point of all of this anatomy and physiology and technicality is connection to your body. Without your body, all of this is hypothetical. All of it is theoretical. It takes a human body to experience and bring to life these postures for us to even then be able to have this conversation. So you and you know best. Legs out long. I didn't mention it before, we are going to need blocks today. So if you have, maybe you don't have blocks, maybe you have a couple of tall books or like a little stool or something you can use. But go ahead and bring your blocks alongside your legs, maybe around your knees or thighs to start. Bring your hands onto them. Lift your chest and keep your chest forward. Keep hugging your shoulder blades. And like my teacher Amy likes to call the muscles along your spine like your back abs. See if you can engage there. And then bring your elbows, forearms, or hands down onto the block and pause. See if you can keep lengthening the spine. So instead of thinking about folding forward, think about your spine getting taller, longer, more space. And then exhale, let your head and shoulders come down wherever you are. A couple of deep breaths. You might move your blocks forward or down when you get there. I know I kind of instinctively did. And then lift up again. Keep your elbows, forearms, or hands on the blocks wherever they are. Extend your spine, hug your shoulder blades together. Draw your belly button back towards your spine. And then exhale, release. Let your head and shoulders come down. And then come all the way back up. So effectively, that we just did is the same when we're standing. So when we do a forward fold, we don't come like all the way back here and then come all the way forward. That feels awful. And it's not going to do us any favors in the sense that it is extra movement. We don't need it. We're going to explore that coming up to standing. So before we do that, you can just move your blocks out to the side, move your blanket out to the side. Let's come into downward facing dog for a minute. Hands to the mat, hips in the air. Pedal out through your feet. I like to test out the length of my stance in down dog by shifting forward to plank. They should be the same stance width, unless you have a reason you know that's not true for you, which are valid. Shoulders stack over the wrists, heels stack over the ball of the feet, spine stays long, so hips aren't hanging or popping, neutral. And then lift back to down dog, soften your knees. Notice if your instinct is to step your feet forward, try to resist that for now. And instead, let your heels be off the floor. Let the back of your body get a little longer. Big breath in, big breath out. Come on forward to plank. And this time with your knees up or down, bend your elbows. Keep your spine long as you lower all the way to the floor. Hug your elbows together. Hug your shoulder blades onto your back. Release the tops of your feet. Curl up in the upper back. Keep your low ribs on the floor for now. And see if you can just lengthen your spine. So think about what it felt like sitting on the floor. Press up through the back of your head and shoulders, maybe to get a little more curl in the front of the chest. And then exhale, release. Tuck your toes, press up and back. Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Couple more deep breaths. One more time. Inhale, come forward to plank. Exhale, bend your elbows, lower down slow. Release the tops of your feet. Curl your shoulders up and back. Lift up. Keep your ribs on the low ribs on the floor just for another breath or two. And then exhale, release. Press up and back. Downward facing dog. We're going to take lots of little steps forward to the front of the mat. Slow, like slower than you think. This is to warm up the backs of the legs and the muscles in your spine. So if you imagine that there is a long rope that runs from the back of your skull to the back of your heel on the back side of your body, and that there is a pulley, like a pulley system at your pelvis, the length of rope does not change, but the tension of it does. So when we have more tension in the backs of the legs or the spine, it will take the slack from the other place. One of the things we're looking for in these forward folds and halfway lifts is an equal amount of space in the legs and in the back. So eventually you're going to come into a forward fold. I'm going to move to the middle of my mat just for the video. You can stay where you are. And find your blocks. So even if you don't normally use the blocks, we're going to use them today. Bring your hands onto them, or your forearms or your elbows. And fold forward here. Let your head hang. Let your shoulders relax. Press into your feet. And then bring your hands on your hips. Hug your shoulder blades together. Press into your feet. Stand all the way up, long spine. And release your arms. Take a couple of deep, full breaths. So, standing here, imagine like you were laying on your back. Again, halfway lift is not to 90 degrees, it is to 45 degrees underneath that 90. I don't think those words I just said made sense, but follow along if you can. You are standing in extension of the spine here. We want to engage the muscles on the back, hands on the hips. Come forward to 90 degrees. Keep hugging your shoulders together. Keep pressing into your feet. Oh, and then bring your hands to the floor. Let it go. Or the blocks. When I say floor or blocks, they're interchangeable today. So that probably didn't feel great, huh? Heel toe your feet as wide apart as the mat. Bend your knees. Sit your butt down for a squat. So either malasana with your hips low and your toes and knees in the same direction, or you can hang out in a pep talk pose with your elbows on your thighs. So one of the reasons we want our hands to touch into something during this is because our nervous system wants to keep us safe. We have something in our body called proprioception, and that is like our sonar. It's like knowing where our bodies are in space. And when our bodies think that we don't know where the ground is, there are parts of our nervous system that will not relax, and that means that there are parts of our backs that won't do their actions fully. When your hands are not on the floor, your body thinks you might be falling, even if your brain knows that's not true. So we practice pushing into something on the floor to remind the body that it's safe, it's supported, and that there is space to relax. Go ahead, bring your hands on the blocks. Oh, nice and slow. Lift your hips, lower your head and shoulders. So just for some reference here, like my hands come to the floor. Like that is not, it's not like a I can't do it thing. The blocks are like, let's do it more type of thing. Let's emphasize this. So come up onto the tallest height of your blocks on your fingertips. You want to walk your feet back so that they're under your hips, and you want your shoulders to be over your wrists and hands. Put a little bend in your knees. Hug your shoulder blades together. Melt your belly and chest towards the floor. Lift the top of your head and tailbone towards the sky. And then exhale, reverse the wave. Press into your feet, arch your back, round it up, and keep going like that a couple of times. This is cat and cow on stilts. Cat and cow is extension and flexion of the spine. So you'll notice that it is harder probably to achieve extension with this long ass lever of your legs than it is on hands and knees. And as a matter of fact, move your blocks off to the side, bring your hands to the floor, bring your knees to the floor, cat and cow. A little spinal wave. Extension, melt the belly and chest towards the floor, hug the shoulder blades, tailbone and top of the head lift. Exhale, press into your hands, press into your knees, draw your belly button up around the back, and go back and forth a couple of times. So if you imagine that long length of rope down your back, the reason that it is easier to achieve extension and flexion here is because of the huge bend in your knees. It's adding another, I don't know if I'm going to use this term exactly right, but like another fulcrum in the body. So your pelvis here is where that length of rope goes through. And when we have a shorter lever, the spine has more slack. It has more space to move. Versus, go ahead and come on back up, grab your blocks. Thud, thud. I don't know if the microphone picked that up, but that was really loud. Okay, so now we don't have the benefit of that extra bend in the knees, and you might feel a little more stuck. The good news is you can bend your knees. There is no rule that says you can't. And as a matter of fact, you might get more stretch in your legs and spine when you give yourself that extra support. Okay, so go ahead and forward fold. You might lower your blocks if you have the space to. If you don't, stay with the tall height. I think I'll be able to demo better with the lower blocks, just with my body as it is. So here we are in a forward fold. We are in flexion, right? Let your head get heavy, let your shoulders get heavy. And then go ahead, come up onto your fingertips on the block. Hug your shoulder blades together. Extend your spine long. Don't worry about how high up you get. Push down into your fingers, hug your shoulders together, push into your feet, knees can stay bent, and then exhale, fold back down. Press into the feet, let your head get heavy. I don't know about you, but I just got more stretch and sensation on the backs of my legs. I was able to get more stretch because there was more nuance in the action. Couple more times. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, forward fold. Bring your hands on your hips, shoulder blades together. Press into your feet, stand all the way up. And exhale, release. Pause. Breathe. Remember that the point is connection. We learn the rules so that we are able to break them or modify them to fit where we are. It's all about you connecting to you. So if it got frustrating or like bunged up, just shake it out a little. Remind yourself that that's normal. It's expected. Okay. All right. So I'm going to show you a little via negativa, compare and contrast. So some stuff I see people do and how we can avoid it. I'm going to remove my blocks because I think I'll be able to demo it more clearly, but don't let them go too far. Okay, so a lot of times what I see as a yoga teacher is people are forward folding, their knees hyperextend, and their upper body. So this is actually going to aggravate and exacerbate tightness in the body because we're like cutting off the length at a part of the body that is more mobile and at the expense of a part of the body that is less normal. So the first thing I usually tell people in a forward fold is bend your knees. Oh, and you saw, like, you can see how immediately, just when I bend my knees, everything changes. So when you bend your knees in a forward fold, you're actually offering your back more slack. That means that the tight parts of your back are going to get more length. Your legs already know how to straighten. We don't need that. If straightening your legs stretched them, we wouldn't need to do this in yoga. So when we, let's see, sorry, I got all lost thinking about legs. Okay, so we're folding forward. The next thing I see a lot of the times is when the cue to halfway lift arrives, people think we're going halfway up to stand. No, sorry, that's aggressive. We're actually going halfway to extension, which is 90 degrees. So what people do is they go halfway lift and then they push their knees and they do this with their back, which like feels and looks like you're doing the thing, but actually you're not. You're just hyperextending the knees. That spot in the back does not get more open. So when I halfway lift, like when I don't have blocks, I keep my fingertips on the floor. I keep my knees as bent as I need to. I hug the shoulder blades, draw the belly in, reach the head away from the hips, and then exhale, press into the feet, bend the elbows, fold back down. I'll show you a couple times. Inhale to extend. Exhale to release. So go ahead a couple of times, explore that for yourself. Again, blocks are going to give you more access to your spine. The taller up your blocks are, the more you're going to get to that sort of 90-degree visual. Don't get hung up on it. You can get up to 90 degrees and still have your back rounded. So instead, imagine like you were pinching a pencil that was laying between your shoulder blades. So when you inhale and extend, hug your shoulder blades, low back moves towards the floor. Exhale, fold back down. Keep your hands connected to something. Again, remind your body that you're not falling. Whew. Couple more. And then release. Hands on your hips, shoulder blades together. Press into your feet, come all the way up to stand. Whew. All right. So let's add that to our vinyasa and see how it feels. Come on up to the front edge of your mat. Have your blocks nearby if you weren't already there. I know I wasn't. Oh, pick your wedgie if you're me, or if you have a wedgie to pick. A couple of deep breaths. Inhale, arms lift. Exhale, just release them down alongside your body. One more time, inhale, arms up. This time, exhale, hinge at your hips, forward fold, bring your hands to the blocks or the floor. Deep breath in, come up onto your fingertips on the floor or the blocks. Hug your shoulders together, extend your spine long. Exhale, forward fold. Couple more times, just like that. Inhale, extend and lengthen. Exhale, fold back down. One more deep breath in. Hug your shoulder blades together. Draw your low belly in and up, pressing to your feet. Knees can be as bent as you want. And then release. Press into your feet. Stand all the way up. Long spine lifts you. Arms reach. And then exhale, forward fold to come all the way back down to the floor. Bring your hands to the mat. Step back, downward facing dog. Deep breath. Inhale, come forward to plank. Knees up or down, bend your elbows, long spine all the way to the mat. We want to maintain extension because that's what's going to take us into a back bend. We don't want flexion there. It's just extra. We don't need it. Roll your shoulders back, hug your elbows in. Keep your chin a little tucked. Maybe lift up a little higher into cobra. And then exhale, release. Tuck your toes, press up and back. Downward facing dog. Couple of big full breaths. Take lots of little steps forward, all the way up to the front of the mat. Think about it like this. When you're in down dog, you are in that extension, and now we are moving towards flexion. So every couple of breaths, it might feel good to lengthen the spine again, fold a little deeper. We're just decreasing that angle. Like imagine you were sitting on the floor with your butt on the ground in down dog, and now you're folding forward like Paschimottanasana, like seated forward fold. When you get into your forward fold, take a version that helps you release the muscles in your back. So bent knees, hands on something. I like to even flip my palms up towards my face, just to remind my upper body that it doesn't need to do anything here. Deep breath in. Lift, quote unquote, halfway. Fingertips stay down on something. Elbows, no, not elbows. They're doing something. Shoulders hug together. Spine lengthens away from your hips. And then exhale, press into the outer edges of your legs, fold down deeper. Whew, a couple of times, just like that. Inhale, extend. Exhale to flex. Deep breath in, lengthens. And then big breath out, folds you back down. Press into your feet, stand all the way up. Arms lift as high in the air as you want. And then exhale, hands come down alongside your body in Tadasana. Pause and breathe. Check in. So the point of that Sun Salute A that we just moved through is to warm up the body through flexion and extension of the spine. It gets all the big movers happening. It helps us connect to ourselves. And so again, just the reminder that if it doesn't, if it's not serving you, how can you, what can you do in your body to offer more of that connection that we're looking for? Go ahead and bend your knees, sit your hips back, keep sitting back, let your butt drop to the floor. We'll come seated. So we're going to do another one of these. And by these, I mean seated forward folds. So again, if your low back is rounding here, if your upper back is rounding here, we're looking for extension. We're looking for that quote unquote halfway lift. We want to get hugging on the back side of the body, and some height under your pelvis will tilt the pelvis forward in a way that helps extend. So go ahead and do that. Oh, I need my blocks. Oh, sorry. You might have to scrounge for your blocks. Okay. Wiggle your little tushy onto that blankie if you've got it. So bring your arms up overhead. This is down dog. And imagine we walk our feet forward and we come into the forward fold. So just to connect these shapes to other shapes that are similar, I find that's helpful in my own body. Bring your hands onto the blocks. Lift your chest and shoulders nice and tall. You can feel it probably. Hi, George. These similar actions. Flex your feet. Put a little bend in your knees. So that's another thing. You can always put a rolled blanket under your knees if they feel like they hyperextend and your heels lift. It's going to help you forward fold more. Same as when we're standing. So from here, reach your chest forward and out. Keep hugging your shoulder blades together and then pause. Bring your elbows onto your blocks or onto your hands onto the blocks. But see if you can stay with this extension until we get to about halfway down, so 45 degrees. Whew, it should be a lot of work. It shouldn't feel easy. And if it does, I'm so proud of your open hamstrings for being genetically predisposed to this. I am a very flexible person, and on a tight day, this is 1 million for me, right? So there's no judgment about tightness in the body. It's just information. And when we empower ourselves with knowledge about anatomy, physiology, and alignment, we can better empower ourselves to make decisions for our bodies. Maybe you lower your blocks down a level. Inhale, extend a little more, lift your shoulders, reach out and down. And then if you've gotten to about 45 degrees, now is the time to let your head and shoulders come down to your cat. If you've got a kitty right here. Oh, hello, Georgie. At this point, I like to move my blocks forward because, again, I'm thinking about length, not depth. I'm trying to get longer in the back. And as a matter of fact, I'll just lift up a little bit again ow, don't bite my foot. And then forward fold. It's like a miracle anyone wants to do yoga with me now that this cat is like my assistant. Every so often, that little lift up can help remind the spine to extend and support itself, and then give yourself that space to fold down deeper. Ooh. Let your head get heavy. Let your exhales get longer. And then as you're ready to walk yourself back up. Whew, nice job. So you may have noticed if you were watching that I lowered my blocks as I went because I felt my spine releasing for space. Um, Part of that is practice, is that my body like accepts signals from itself. And part of it was because the extension and flexion work in tandem, that when you offer that lift and support, there is going to be more space to fold forward, even if it's just like a sliver of space. So well done. We're just going to add a couple of hip stretches and then come onto our backs for a little bit. Bend your right knee inside your left leg for Janu Shirshasana. One arm to either side of your long left leg. I don't know if you can see it from this angle, but my right knee is like kind of up off the floor. I'm going to grab one of my second blocks. You could use a bolster or a pillow or a blanket. And I'm just going to slide it under my leg. It's the same idea as your hands on the block, that like when your leg feels something it can press into, it will release more than when it's hanging in the air because your body does not want you to fall. So with one arm on either side of your left leg, lift up and keep the extension. Hug your shoulder blades together until you get about halfway down. That's relative, right? I know I've said that a bunch of times, but it bears repeating. And then maybe you fold all the way down. Whew. Keep rotating your chest towards the top of your thigh. Again, if you feel your back get super rounded, lift up. Think cow, udders towards the floor. Hug your shoulder blades together. And then maybe walk yourself further out. Maybe you stay upright and you just let your head come down. That's like a good neck and shoulder stretch if it's a good one for you. And maybe you come further down towards the ground. Grabbing the foot, I actually think sometimes exacerbates the situation because you're like pulling and yanking. So just be mindful of that. Sometimes I like to hold my foot just as a feedback that like the leg stays active. And then come on back up. And we'll switch sides. Right leg comes forward, left knee bends. Oh yeah, this leg needs some support, so I'm just gonna give it to it. Oh, this side is tight for me, so it may be for you as well. You're not gonna have the same experience on both sides when you're doing something asymmetrical, so go slow. Lift your chest, hug your shoulder blades together, extend out long. Instead of thinking about bringing your face to your knee, think about bringing the front of your chest to your big toe. Like you could extend so much that you would bump into your foot, which like isn't going to happen probably, but that's the trajectory. Whew. And when you feel like you can't go any further, that's a good place to hang out and breathe and maybe kind of lift up and then see if there's more space to go down. So like on this side, this is like about as deep as it's going to get today. I know that this has to do with my left low back and QL, so I'm not going to yank on it. I'm not going to tell my body that it's wrong. I'm actually going to say, ooh, thank you for the information, body. Maybe we need more extension to find that flexion here. Whew. When you think you've gotten about as deep as you're going to go with your spine long, let your head and shoulders come down, but not at the expense of your back. If everything rounds again, especially your low back, Just lift up again. Yeah, like I think I'm going to lift my blocks again. Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. And you actually might get more sensation in like not just your attachment sites, but actually throughout your whole back and spine. A couple more deep, full breaths wherever you are. And then lift yourself back up. Go ahead and bring both feet together to touch. A little Baddha Konasana bound angle pose. If you'd like to put your blocks under your legs, if they're way high up in the air like mine are, or just a couple of blankets, again, that will help release the spine. So go ahead, extend, hug your shoulders together, draw your low belly in and up, and then nice and gentle, crawl yourself forward a little. Again, when you feel the low back start to curve, walk the hands in again. Hug the shoulders together. Oh, this might be it. Like for me today, I don't have much more fold forward in me without compromising my back, which is actually not going to help open the hips like the pose intends. You might find something that feels really good. That's not what I'm saying. Like, trust yourself, but also trust that, like, anatomy and alignment are valuable concepts that can teach us a lot about our bodies. Ooh. Maybe after a few breaths where you are, you feel like there is a little bit more space to come forward. And perhaps for the last few breaths here, with your low back staying supported, your head and shoulders can come down a little more. And walk yourself back up. Whew. Bring your legs together. Move the blocks out of the way. Scoot your blanket out from under your butt. Move it back for under your head. And then come on down onto the ground. Bring your knees into your chest. Roll around a little bit on your back. And then bring your left foot to the floor, cross your right ankle over your left knee. Just one last little pigeon shape. You could stay here with your foot on the floor, or you could hug your knees into your chest. They'll stretch different muscles, so you can kind of decide which ones need a little stretch here at the end of class. And when you're ready to switch sides, it will be the perfect time. So no rush. Follow your own lead. I will say, like, we probably could have done more hamstring stretching on our backs at the beginning of class, but I wanted to kind of get into it. So good information, right? If you're like, wow, my back was really tight, like stretching your hamstrings without that long lever of the spine is going to help you connect these pieces better. You know, it's an experiment being a body. And it's okay if it was hard. It's okay if it was kind of a challenging perspective. Or that's the idea. So for the last few minutes here, we're just going to take some rest in Shavasana with your legs out long. You could keep your knees bent and your feet on the floor. You could throw your legs up the wall. I'm going to slide a block under my hips on the lowest height. I'm going to press into the feet, lift up, and then lower my pelvis down onto the block. Oh, that feels nice for me. It might not for you. You can be anywhere that you'd like. If you pick a position and you want to come out of it before the end of Shavasana, that is well within your rights as a body. Maybe you want to take your glasses off if you're wearing glasses, or add a sweater or socks if you want to cozy up. A couple of deep, full breaths. And then let the breath go. We'll give ourselves a few minutes to just rest and breathe. A couple more deep breaths wherever you are. And if you're on your back on the block or you have props beneath you, take your time moving them out of the way or rolling to one side. Give yourself a breath or two without them. You can stretch out long or hug in close. Nice and slow. Excuse me. Help yourself up to an easy seated position. Let your hands rest somewhere comfortable in your lap or on your legs. maybe over your heart. And again, the reminder that the purpose of these postures is to connect you to yourself, to connect you to what you connect to. And having language and information to describe something that's already happening in your body can be super empowering, but it can also be really disconnecting. It can be easy to fall into that binary of good and bad, or right or wrong, or yes or no. And we don't need that. Most binaries in the body can do more harm than good. We are looking for a full spectrum human experience. And so, just a reminder today that if you got stuck in one of those places, that is normal and expected, but that it can be a doorway. That when we notice ourselves getting stuck, to try to view the experience from a more expansive vantage point. Oh, right, I'm just bumping up into me. How can I soften? How can I make more space for my own experience? Thank you all so much for making space for this experience today. I hope it was helpful and informative. I look forward to sharing part 3, which is going to be chaturanga and up dog. Exciting and scary. So stay tuned for that. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Hail yourselves, yogis. I'll see you soon.